Greetings, fellow book lovers, and welcome back to Colin's Corner. Today, guys, I'm going to be starting a new series on the channel, and I think I'm going to be calling it the Got Into series, where I will just be telling you guys kind of how I got into different things in my reading journey. This idea was actually birthed by my cousin who reached out to me recently. He's a supporter of the channel, but he is not currently in his life a very big reader. And he's kind of just been asking me like how I got into it, what books I picked up, what could he try to get him hooked. So it kind of gave me the idea to this series is going to start with today's video, which is going to be 5 tips that helped me to get back into reading as an adult. But before we get into today's video, we do have to go over the answer from the last Comedy with Colin segment. In that segment, I asked you guys the question, what kind of factory makes okay products? The answer? A satisfactory. Alrighty, without anything further, guys, let's get into this video. Now, I do just want to kind of put a disclaimer and just say this is not any kind of definitive list. These are just 5 tips that I employed that really helped me to bring reading back into my life. So with that, guys, let's move on to the first tip. The first tip is going to be just acquire some new books or new to you books. This helped me to get excited about reading. You can buy them, you can ask a friend to borrow them, you can go to your local library and borrow books from them. I don't know about you guys, but I am somebody that gets really excited about new things. It can be a purchase that I've been researching and planning for, months and finally get. It can be little simple things. But when I acquire new things, I want to engage with them in some way. It brings excitement back into my life for whatever that thing is. I'd say for me, one of the biggest things that kicked my reading journey off is that I bought some books. Now, another thing I want to add kind of as part of this tip is to grab a variety of books. If you wander into a Barnes & Noble or whatever local bookstores are near you, maybe grab a thriller, grab a sci-fi book, grab a horror book, grab a fantasy book, grab a historical fiction book. Get a little bit of a variety so that you get not only excited about getting new books, but you can also get excited about trying some new genres that maybe you haven't read before. And so that could also help you to it helped me find my genre, things that made me tick. Reading certain books, I found myself being super invested and super drawn to them. So I started to pay attention to that thing, and it's been part of my reading journey that led me to where I am today, is just trying different stuff and figuring out what works for me. Tip number 2. This might sound a little silly, but this worked incredibly well for me. So tip number 2 is going to be leave books out in areas that you relax in. Now, what I mean by that is, if you're a nighttime person, at the end of the night, you crawl into bed, put a book that you just bought on your nightstand, leave it there. If you're someone that after a long day's work, you want to just relax, you put the kids to bed, you made dinner, all that stuff is done, you just want to sit down and relax for a little bit, and it's in a chair or on the couch, put a book on the side table there. What this did for me is it reminded me that I bought a book and that I intended to read it. Reading was not a part of my daily routine when I got back into reading, obviously. So I had to do little things like this to help myself work it back into my life. So it's not that, I just wouldn't want to read, but my brain wasn't wired to read at the end of the night like it is today. That's just part of my daily routine now. So when I had that book sitting on my nightstand, instead of just sitting down and mindlessly flipping the TV on or whipping my phone out, I would see the book before I sat down. I'd be like, oh yeah, I got that book I meant to read. So that helped me put kind of reading further up in my conscious mind, be like, oh, okay, I have that book, I want to read that book. So it was kind of like maybe part of it was like guilt tripping myself, like I bought the book, I got to read it. But the other part of it really was just to help me get it to the forefront of my mind. So that's going to be tip number 2. Tip number 3, guys, is going to be set a minimum time requirement daily that you will read physically. So this tip probably helped me the most in actually working reading back into my life. Now, I personally do really well when I have clear, defined goals that can be achieved. So I started really small. I told myself I'm going to read 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes. Doesn't matter what time of the day I do it, but I'm going to read for, at the bare minimum, 10 minutes every single day. No matter where I am, no matter how tired I am, no matter how I feel, I'm just going to read for 10 minutes. And, I did it on vacation. No matter what the scenario, I just made sure I could fit 10 minutes of reading in every day. I was like, okay, that's attainable, that's achievable, let's go with that. And so what this did for me is, like I've mentioned earlier, I think I'm a nighttime person. I don't do well in the morning, so my nighttime is when I relax. I just read bare minimum. I would get in bed, I'd look at my phone, I'd be like, okay, it's 9:56. I'm going to read until 10:06 at the bare minimum. And that gave me a goal to hit every day. And in my brain, even if it was only 10 minutes, I read. So my brain told me I read. And the longer that I did this, the more it just became a part of my nightly routine is to read. And slowly but surely, I just found myself getting in bed and reading and not checking the time, not seeing how long I read, just finding myself getting lost in the story and not worrying about how much time went past. This was also really helpful because when I was first getting back in, like now I can sit down and read for an hour or 2 hours at a time. When I first was starting to get back into reading, I just didn't have the stamina to do that. It wasn't often because I wasn't interested in the story, but I just couldn't physically read for like an hour at a time and have my attention held for that long because I spent, 15 years not exercising those mind muscles, not exercising those reading muscles. So this kind of helped me to kind of incrementally bump my way back up to being able to read kind of as long as I want to. So like I said, this definitely, I think this tip helped me the most to integrate reading back into my daily routine. And now I'm to the point where if something happens and I can't read at all for part of the day, something feels off. Tip number 4 is going to be don't sleep on audiobooks. Now, I know audiobooks do not work for everybody, and that is completely okay. But for instance, when I was first getting back into reading, I was working a job where I commuted. I was in the car for 5, maybe 6 hours a day, round trip. That's a lot of commuting time. It's a lot of car time. So what I did, and I just started poking around. There are so many platforms that I was already using that offer free audiobooks. YouTube has free audiobooks. Spotify has free audiobooks. If you have a local library and you get a library card, more often than not, I don't imagine any library in today's technological society that doesn't offer some kind of application. Like I have, my library offers Cloud Library and Hoopla, where I can download ebooks or audiobooks for free. So they're very readily available. And the other thing with audiobooks is, in my opinion, don't let anybody tell you that audiobooks don't count. We read in order to experience the story that the author intended or created. And we read in order to learn, we read in order to be entertained, to discuss themes, to discuss characters. And guess what? An audiobook allows you to do that with other people or just to experience the story, which is the whole point of reading in any form. So don't let anybody tell you that audiobooks don't count. Audiobooks have really become a large part of my day. I don't actually hardly ever listen to much music anymore because I would just rather hop into a story. Oftentimes, audiobooks actually enhance my experience more than I would have guessed because I'm not the most imaginative reader. I'm not somebody that's creating this cinematic experience in my head, but there are some narrators out there that do such a tremendous job of embodying what the author was trying to convey that it just completely enhanced my experience of that story. So, tip number 4, guys, is going to be do not sleep on audiobooks. Tip number 5, guys, is going to be join some kind of reading community. Uh, for me, it started here on BookTube, and it's probably the main reason that I started my channel is because I found some creators that really resonated with me, and I was active in their comments. I became a regular in some people's comment sections, and then to take it a step further, I realized that a lot of these creators have their own Discord channels that I could join, where people from all over the country, all over the world, are talking about books all the time. And that helped me to release some of that pent up excitement, that pent up energy to other people that were experiencing the same books that I was reading for the first time. And, bless my wife, but it she puts up with a lot of my reading or other rants, but it's just impossible to express to her the emotions that I'm feeling for an event that happened in the 4th book in some series. But I would open Discord and it would be whatever time at night because I'm staying up reading, and there's people talking about these books. Or I just search a YouTube video where I can hear somebody else's thoughts about these books. So, reading as a community has helped me to get more out of my reading, and it's made me feel a part of something. Especially early on, it made me want to keep reading more. That's how I heard about recommendations. That's how I found other creators' channels and was able to learn from other people about what they were reading and what they liked. And it's another way to help kind of hone your genre taste or to explore new genres. But this isn't the only community. There's libraries. You could start a book club or join a book club. But for me, it was really helpful. I'm not a super solitary person. I like to converse with other people. I like to talk to other people, but I didn't have many people in my life that were reading fiction and definitely not the type of stuff that I was interested in. So, this tip helped me a lot because, like I said, it made me feel a part of, and it got me again more excited to be getting into this new hobby. So, tip number 5 is just going to be join some kind of reading community. That is going to do it for me today, guys. Hopefully this is helpful for somebody out there. I remember beginning my reading journey and feeling a little bit overwhelmed, so I just wanted to share with you guys some tips that helped me to get back to where I'm at today in terms of reading. Now it is time for Comedy with Colin. Today's joke, guys: what do you call an alligator in a vest? If you think you know the answer, drop it down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still here, if you enjoyed today's video, please consider giving it a like. If you're enjoying the content on the channel so far, please do consider subscribing. I hope you are all enjoying what you're currently reading. And remember, you are always welcome in Colin's Corner.